Hey, hello, and welcome to a solo edition of Freshly Popped. I'm from home today. I'm not brave enough to do this in public on my own yet, so I've seen a few films without Little Cheeky now, and I need to catch up on the things that I've seen. Today I'll be talking about Toy Story 5. It's been a few days since I saw the film, so I've had some time to marinate. So, notes at the ready. Let's get going. Toy Story 5 predominantly seems to explore the role of technology, the ever-increasing role of technology within childhood, how conventional play, largely based in imagination, assisted by objects, in this case toys, is rapidly being replaced. It also explores how technology is changing the ways in which children engage with one another, how they develop and maintain relationships. The film, by and large, seems to villainize technology. It purports that technology creates insular, almost disaffected children, and that even when children are physically together, they essentially remain alone as technology is at the centre of the activity, the centre of play. Crucially, the film focuses more on personal devices as opposed to anything like games consoles. The reason why I think this is important to note is that personal devices such as tablets, in this case, typically assist in solo activities, despite their ability to connect remotely with others. The film also seems to comment on how children seem to be using technology, being given personal devices at younger and younger ages. I think back to when I first received a mobile phone, for instance. This was in my teens. Obviously, I'm of a totally different generation, so there has been a definite shift over time. Technology does play a bigger role in how anyone in society functions, how they interact with the world. So in part, it does make sense that potentially the threshold, the age in which children become involved in technology is much younger and younger. And it is in various forms, I understand that, because even back in my day, you could have a piece of technology that was very limited. I don't know if you remember just those, simple tablets with pre-loaded games or activities that didn't connect to the internet. And I think that's potentially the distinction to make, is that children are utilizing the internet to connect with one another. But whether or not that's a positive thing or a negative thing, I think is widely debated. It's probably a bit of both, let's be honest. But as I say, this film largely seems to vilify personal devices and technology of these types. There initially seems to be very little nuance concerning technology. As soon as Bonnie is given her device, she essentially changes. She becomes withdrawn, she becomes distracted. So her previously imaginative and creative sensibility, her personality, is essentially obliterated by the introduction of this device in her life. Essentially, Bonnie becomes lost to the screen. This lack of nuance perhaps isn't entirely fair or balanced when it comes to technology. It's represented as something of an immediate corrupter, and largely ignores how tech has the potential to facilitate creative and collaborative play. However, as these films are predominantly from the point of view of the toys, our central characters, it perhaps makes more sense. We're seeing technology through the perspective of the toys and particularly Jessie. So keeping this in mind, tech is represented through the perspective of the toys as nothing more than a threat to their role within Bonnie's universe and ultimately their existence as toys. The film centres largely around Jessie and her once again having to face the possibility of no longer being needed. It also returns to her issues of abandonment as established in prior films, which are also elaborated here in Toy Story 5. The film successfully provides a form of closure to these prior abandonment issues. She seems to find a place of healing and gains something of an understanding about her role within the life of a child. So, as I say, I saw this film a few days ago. Immediately as I came out, I was impressed by the film. I found it to be emotional. However, upon reflection, I started to feel as though Jessie's journey in Toy Story 5 shared too many similarities with Woody's journey in Toy Story 4. If we take away the concept of toys versus tech, it feels as though Jessie is on the same emotional arc that Woody had been. Woody is sidelined in favour of other toys, and Jessie goes through the same thing, only with tech. She is presented as the leader of the room still, but as soon as tech is involved, Bonnie loses all interest in toys, essentially. Both toys also have their value, their sense of self-worth, tied to this idea of being the favourite toy, and when that changes, they struggle to accept any alternative. Ultimately, however, both Woody and Jessie come to terms with their changed roles and a more understanding of a broader meaning of existence. As a result of these similarities, the film ultimately seems less important within the context of the franchise as a whole, despite the new concept of tech versus toys, which is something that hadn't really been referenced in the films prior. It probably goes without saying that the film looks incredible, and it's flawlessly animated. Like most Pixar films, the studio is very skilled at evoking an emotional response, and I guess within the context of the Toy Story franchise, part of that is to do with how attached we are to these characters. If you have been watching Toy Story films since the beginning, your history with these characters now spans many, many years. I actually saw Toy Story 1 in the cinema when it first came out, and at the time I didn't go to the cinema very often. This was like a special birthday treat. But as I say, I have seen all of these films as they've come out, and you develop a special relationship to them. Beyond that, however, they simply know how to construct a story that builds to a singular, sincere and emotionally affecting moment, and this always feels satisfying. Pixar rarely fails to achieve this, and despite my issues with this film, Toy Story 5 is no exception. Ultimately, I feel a bit conflicted about rating this film, but I came to the conclusion that my emotional response outweighed my logical brain. As a result, I'm still going to rate this highly. It's not quite a 5, it's not quite Toy Story 3, but I think it deserves a 4. I think it's a very well-made film. It makes me sad that Pixar is kind of not getting the love and attention that it used to. I'm sure this film has made a lot of money already, and I'm sure there'll be another. Unclear what the idea would be for Toy Story 6. I've personally enjoyed every Pixar film they've made. Possibly my favourite is Onward. That was another film which really grabbed me emotionally, especially in the closing moments as Ian realizes that he ultimately had a father figure all along in his brother. Another really stupid thing I want to say about Toy Story 5 is that I found it incredibly strange that, considering how many pony toys were in this film, that we do not see any My Little Ponies. They're like one of the most iconic toys ever made, and I'm just so surprised there's not at least one cameo there. Maybe some of those toys I just didn't know the references of, but as far as I know, they were just horse toys. But yeah, where was the My Little Pony Pixar? You would think that any toy company would be willing to allow them to include them in these films, but maybe there's something I don't know. I think that's pretty much all I have to say about Toy Story 5. I would definitely recommend go seeing it. I have a few more reviews lined up, solo and otherwise, so be sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Were you as conflicted as I was about the film? Did you have a favourite moment? Did you cry, most importantly? I will confess, I did. I cried. So, yep, comment below. Thanks again, and see you next time.